Makayla here. Hi. I really thought I had it all figured out. And then this last week happened and it felt like everything was falling apart. But I was able to go from feeling really stuck and lost to feeling a rekindled sense of trust and vision for the future. And I wanted to come on here to share about that with you all, because if you're going through anything like what I've been going through and you're feeling lost and you're feeling like things are falling apart, especially from the high of feeling like you had it figured out to then the low of feeling like it's all falling apart, I think this experience that I went through and this journey I've gone on just over this past week could really help you right where you're at. So I just want you to know I'm here. I see you. And let's dig in. So this past Monday, I had my first occupational therapy appointment. So I've been recovering from a fractured wrist, and I got out of the cast and I got to meet, and start doing my rehabilitative therapy and all that. And this appointment, it was so painful. And that physical pain triggered all these feelings in me. It's like I got totally flooded. It brought up feelings from the original injury, feelings of like doubt about my ability to heal and be strong. It was really intense. And it left me feeling really shaken and kind of like I was underwater. So I had that experience. I came home and I checked my email, and I happened upon this email telling me that this business deal that I've been pouring my heart and soul and time and money and energy into for the past 4 months has been dissolved. We're not going to be moving forward. And this deal was like life-changing, a life-changing business deal that was creating all of these beautiful visions for me, for my future and what was possible and the people I get to connect with. And I was very invested. So everything I had been working towards, and even my sense of physical strength and capability with my wrist, along with this clear vision for my future, was gone. There are 3 things that happened next. And that's what I want to walk you through in this video. So 1, I recognized I needed support. And I'm going to talk about how I recognized that. 2, it's hard to count on this hands over. 2, there's a specific tool that I reached for. And I'll talk about that specific tool and the magic of it. But I'll also talk about how to know which tool to reach for when you need support. And 3, and the third one is actually really a fun surprise to me, because this third thing that happened, I didn't even really realize it until I was preparing this video for you. So that's a fun surprise one. I'm going to walk you through these. And my aim is really that you'll come away from this feeling more empowered with whatever comes next. Okay. So part 1, I recognized that I needed support, right? How do you recognize that you need support? Well, I woke up on this past Tuesday morning. So Monday was when all the stuff happened. Tuesday morning, I wake up and I felt like emotionally hungover. And there was this way I could sense that I was in kind of a frozen and stuck state, which I want to clearly articulate is different than simply feeling a lot of feelings and kind of moving through a feeling or lots of feelings. So in somatic psychology, we refer to it as like sequencing through. You want to sequence things through versus letting them calcify and grow hard and stuck. And so I could feel this like stuckness. And so as you're making this practical for yourself, there's a way that I like to kind of scan for stuckness. And it goes back to this 4-part check-in that I have a video about. I'll try to link that either in the description, or maybe I can get fancy and put it somewhere here on the screen. But this 4-part check-in where you check in with your breath. Is there any stuckness to my breath? Any ways it's hard to breathe deeply? Is there any stuckness in my mind, my thoughts? Is there any stuckness in my emotions? Am I kind of staying stuck on one feeling? And is there any sensation of stuckness in my body? Does any part of my body feel kind of like it's holding tension or clenching? So this signal of stuckness, and like another way I think of stuckness too is when we get caught in loops. This is something you might notice, especially with your thoughts, right? Where you're just looping around one thought again and again and again. Or sometimes the thoughts and the feelings really pair together, right? Like the thought triggers a feeling and you're stuck in that loop. When you feel stuck, that is your cue that you need some extra support, right? Some resources, some tools. I think sometimes when we feel stuck, instead of leaning into it or getting curious or resourcing in some way, we'll go more towards numbing or tuning it out. And that's totally normal. And it's okay. I still do that sometimes too. Like, yeah, let's just watch TV, or yeah, let's just go make a nice snack. That's okay. It happens. And when we have the ability to dig into tools and resources that are deeply nourishing, that don't just feel good while we're doing it, but also help us feel better afterwards, that's great. That's a wonderful thing to move towards. So the tool that I chose, this is part 2, the tool. So the tool that I reached for is this really cool practice of going and spending time with my future self. There's a very specific guided process that I take people through and that I have a recording of so I could take myself through it, where you go and you meet your future self and you spend time with her or with them. And you get to ask questions. You get to feel what it's like to be in the presence of your future self. And it's a really beautiful process. And I'm going to share some of the juicy insights that came from that here with you all, just so that you can get kind of an idea of what that experience was like. And, my future, part of the pain of what I was experiencing, right, that prompted all of this was that my future had gone from being this beautiful vision to feeling blank, like a blank slate, wiped clean. And not in like a fun, ooh, it's a new piece of paper canvas way. No. It was like blank, like in a void. And there's like darkness creeping in on the edges. And so that's part of my cue of like, I need my future self right now. I remember distinctly thinking that Tuesday morning when I realized how like kind of emotionally hungover I felt. I was like, I think I need my future self right now because I feel really lost. And I don't feel like I have a clear vision to breathe and live into. One of the things that was especially great about this future self process for me is that it was a very low barrier to entry. Because I already have the recording, all I had to do was like, I chose to lay down. I love to lay down during a meditation. I chose to just lay down, press play, grab my journal, had it ready with my pen so I could journal after the visualization. And it was like, 20 minutes later, I'd had this whole beautiful experience. So the low barrier to entry was really helpful with this tool. And so I encourage you, if there are certain tools that feel especially accessible to you, reach for those. When you're like, ooh, I need some support. Reach for the things that are easy to access, especially when you're feeling raw and unmoored and emotionally hungover. Now, I'm going to share some of the things that happened in this future self meditation. Because why not? It's juicy. It's powerful. And these insights might actually be helpful to you too. So my future self, I just want to say it right off the bat, she's definitely me. It feels like she's very much me, just like older, wiser. There's a calm steadiness to her that I really love. And there's like a self-assured quality as well. It's really pleasant to be around. And part of what I love about connecting with future self, and I've noticed this with all the people I've guided to do future self work, is there's this really profound feeling of comfort when you spend time with your future self. And like that future you is able to see you and acknowledge you and what you're going through in a deeper way than anybody else. Because that future you lived through this, right? They survived this. And they're also able to provide like reassurance and humor and insights and really speak to you directly. And that's part of what I really noticed this last time when I did the future self process. So the first thing she said, so there's a series of questions. I always like to ask the future self, and then I like to leave some room for more free-form questions. But one of the questions I ask is, what has mattered most to you over the past 10 years? That's if I've traveled to my 10-year in the future self. What has mattered most to you over the past 10 years? And sometimes the answer is in images, sometimes it's in words. And then I ask, how can I get from where I am to where you are? And her answer for kind of both of those was something that surprised me. And that always feels like a good sign to me when my future self shares things with me that feel a little bit surprising. Like they make sense, but they also feel surprising, because that's my sign that I'm tapping into something deeper. It's not just my more conscious brain telling me kind of what I want to hear or what I've been thinking about. It's these deeper layers of my awareness, whether it's the metaphysical and it really is my future self telling me, or it's more just the ability to access deeper wisdom that comes from doing a guided process like this. I can hang with both. I like pragmatic and practical things, and I like the esoteric. So she said, I built a life around being good to my body. And I love that so much. I built a life around being good to my body. And this was surprising to me because I've never said it that way. I've never articulated that as like, oh yeah, let's have that be the organizing principle of our lives. Even though I am super into being good to my body and I love moving and I love health and wellness and all that. But to hear her articulate it so clearly of like, I built a life around being good to my body. That's how I got from where you are to where I am. It's really cool. Really, really cool. And then during the time where I could just, ask whatever I needed to ask. If there's a specific challenge or issue, I kind of leave this open space for that. And so I brought up, hey, I'm really in this challenging time right now. I feel unmoored. I feel scared and concerned about the future. And I was like, what happened? Because you're me. So you know all of this. What wisdom do you have for me with that? And this part was so cool. She took me out into her garden. And she knows me. She knows I love plant metaphors and gardens. And so we're out in the garden. It's late summer, right? Because it's 10 years from now and it's August right now. So it's late summer in her garden. And like everything's gone to seed and it's all just like lush and overgrown and just like so alive. And she walks me over to this lettuce plant that has gone to seed. And if you don't know what that looks like, so if you're used to buying like a head of lettuce, if you leave that head of lettuce in the ground and it gets to this time of year where it gets really hot, the center of the plant will bolt up in this spear, and then it'll create these little flowers, little tiny flowers, like itty bitty dandelions, little flowers. And then that leads to these itty bitty dandelion poofs. That's what lettuce seeds look like. They look like a miniature dandelion, which I love dandelions already. And then miniature, it's just like, I love it. I love it. I love it. It was so great. And I was like, you clearly are me because you're speaking my language of mini dandelions. So she walks over to this lettuce plant and she's pointing out how the seeds are getting scattered, right? Maybe the wind blows them, the rain, an animal brushes against them, insects, whatever it might be. Or, maybe she grabs them and a human will kind of blow them all over. And she's pointing out how the seeds are everywhere in the garden. Some are in the concrete path and they're caught in the cracks. And she's like, some of those seeds will probably never become a lettuce plant. They're in there, they're in that crack. They may never get enough soil, enough water, enough sun to become a new plant. Some might end up in some other little roundabout areas, but eventually they'll get swept away by the rain or the wind, and they'll end up in a place where they can sprout and bear fruit, become a plant. And some, we'll harvest and we'll very intentionally plant into the ground. She's like, but the lettuce poured energy into all of those seeds. That's part of it being alive, and like being here is pouring love and energy into all of those seeds and all of those possibilities for that plant, that lettuce plant, to continue to exist in some new plant form. And it's like I didn't realize until she was saying all of that part of what was so painful to me about this business deal falling through was that I had poured so much energy into it. I had poured so much love into it. And it felt like I had maybe wasted my time and energy. And through this whole plant metaphor, I really felt her letting me know at like this deep, deep level, like it was not wasted. And you don't know what will ultimately come from that time, from that energy that you poured into that possibility. And that there's merit to just pouring our hearts into things, right? It's like, yes, okay, maybe there is a lesson in like having multiple seeds that you're pouring your energy into, not being too focused on just one and putting all your eggs in that basket. I know I'm mixing my metaphors. So yes, there's wisdom to having, look at the plant has multiple seeds that it's sending out everywhere. But this deeper message of like, it is not wrong to wholeheartedly put your energy into something. It's really okay. It's actually part of being alive. So it's okay, right? Because I was really, I think I realized after this visualization, like how much I was kind of beating myself up for that part of like, man, I put too much in. I shouldn't have cared so much, or something. So that was really beautiful to me. And the final thing that I'll share, I'll just touch on this, was towards the end of the visualization, the future self will bring you some symbolic gift. And this could be so many different things. It's, your future self will know what's best for you. And since our deeper layers of consciousness communicate more in symbols, it's really cool to give yourself this opportunity to have like a symbolic experience. And my future self brought this beautiful, huge ceramic, golden yellow, like a fresh lemon bowl, this mixing bowl. And what's so precious about it to me is that it looked almost exactly like this bowl that I got at like a garage sale during a really happy time in my life, when I lived in Iowa, the first few years of college. And in this vision, my future self had made it. And it's like, oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. I could totally see doing ceramics in my future. I've done them before. I could do them again. And choosing to make that bowl. So I probably will. But it just felt like such a beautiful symbol of nourishment, of gathering people together, making food for myself, for other people, that it's like the possibilities for connection, for nourishment, for beauty, for kind of bounty. So that was a really beautiful symbol. So if any of this like future self stuff specifically feels exciting or intriguing to you, which I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously very excited about it. I want you to know that I host group workshops where I guide the group. I keep them very small and intimate, 10, 15 people max, live on Zoom. And we go through this guided journey to meet our future selves or to go visit with them if we've met them before. And it's a beautiful space where you can bring your questions, bring your challenges, get clarity, get insights, get reassurance. And then there's structured time where we're all journaling, we're all kind of digesting the wisdom that we received. And then there's a time to share. And it's just like a really beautiful experience. So I paused doing these for a while, but I'm starting to do them again. And I'm really excited to share this with more people, because this practice of not just connecting with my future self once, but really establishing a relationship with her and having her as like a mentor and asset and resource in my consciousness is so helpful. I mean, it was so helpful this past week. It's been helpful many other times. So if you want to hear about that, the best next step is to sign up for my newsletter, which I'll link below in the description. That way you'll hear about the dates for the next Future Self workshop, and you'll be able to sign up right away. Since I do keep these, relatively intimate, it's good to be in the know. And FYI, my newsletter is not like most newsletters. I'm not going to write just because it's time to write. I write when I feel inspired. And the newsletters are really more like a love letter, like a loving letter from a faraway best friend or from your future self. So my intention with that is that it'll be an email you love to open, that it's full of ideas and words that uplift and comfort and inspire you. Not just practical things and not just, news, but something nourishing. And that's also a space where I'll, of course, share when I have things to share, like a new workshop. Okay, so part 3. This is so cool to me. Okay, so as I was preparing for this video, thinking man, I've really gone on quite the journey the past 7-ish days. And as I thought about, that moment of, okay, I realized I needed help. I realized I needed support. And I realized that there was a resource I had available to me that I could use. And I did that. That all happened that Tuesday, right? But then I was thinking about man, but there were lots of other really beautiful moments throughout the rest of the week. Moments where I was reaching for other tools and kind of almost like the tools were just showing up. I'm what is that? What was that? And I think what it is that because I connected with my future self, and because I just connected with some resource, some tool, it created this ripple effect and almost like a snowball of momentum where I started to connect with the resourceful part of myself. And I think specifically, I will say, I think future self work is specifically potent with this, because connecting with your future self is a form of an inner resource. And so it's connecting you with your inner resourcefulness. So then that's more online. So then, it's well, we know that other tool and we know that thing and we know that thing, and we know that thing. So I think that there was a kind of cool specific to the future self benefit. But honestly, I have a feeling that most resources and tools that you might use could lead to using other tools and using more tools. It's kind of once you start going, it's easier to keep going. The momentum principle. Objects in motion stay in motion. So as I was preparing for the video, I really realized wow, doing that future self thing, it's it woke up this inner resourcefulness in me. And so I found myself reaching for specific tools like EFT tapping, which is where you tap on acupressure points. I did that before my second physical therapy, occupational therapy session. Amazing. I felt so acknowledged and calm. Then there were a few other times where I just did some breath work, some really mindful breath work, using my breath to either energize and clarify or calm me down. I also did this thing called havening, where it's kind of like giving yourself a hug. Did that a few times when I felt like I needed it. I journaled more. I tend to process out loud, so I recorded voice memos, kind of talking things out loud for myself when certain things happened or snagged. And the final thing that I really observed, which feels like really tender in a way to share, is that I reached out to my friends and my support rather than isolating. A lot of times when I struggle, my tendency is to isolate. And I've gotten better at that over the years, but especially over the past year when I felt like things have felt especially sharp, especially challenging, I notice I go in and out of, okay, I'll reach out, but now it feels too hard. I'm just going to isolate. And so I found myself this past week reaching out for support instead of isolating. And that is like, it's so profound because, you know, human connection, even though I'm super into like being independent and like being able to kind of coach yourself and all these resources, inner resources and whatnot, nothing can truly replace the power of community and the power of relationships and being connected to others. So letting myself have that this past week was really, really important. Yeah. So, to close, this whole journey, this whole past week journey, I really feel like was a practice in being a good friend to myself. That's something I've been working on for a long time. And that's a framework I really like to think about because life is so much better when you have like a really good best friend, right? Or a few friends, right? Who are just like, they love you, they support you, they admire you, they're cheering you on, they're honest with you, they help you navigate challenges, right? Like they're just in your corner and they believe in you, right? And getting to be that for myself and feel the steadiness of that presence growing stronger and stronger. All of these times, these are, in a way, these are tests, right? I'm like, are you still there? It's like, yes, I'm still here. That's beautiful. And as with all my videos, I really want to have this information increase your self-awareness and increase your self-compassion and give you practical tools. So this practical reminder I want to leave you with is, maybe it's threefold. We'll see. Let's see about this. 1, stuckness is a cue that you need some support. It can be support you give yourself. It can be support you get from somebody else, right? And scanning for stuckness, right? You can scan and notice where stuckness is. If you're feeling off, right? Scan for the stuckness. Breath, mind, heart, body. And the second thing I'd say practically is that one step of, taking that breath or giving yourself a hug or doing some havening or doing some tapping, taking 2 minutes to journal, that one step can be enough for more and more resourcefulness to flow through. Yeah, we'll leave it at those two. I also want to say that you can know that you'll be okay before you know how you'll be okay. And whatever may be going on in your life right now, I just want you to know I'm here. And I hope that this sharing and this framework that I've shared with you can be helpful. If you want to be connected, please sign up for the newsletter. I'll send you a little love note and I'll let you know about the next Future Self workshop. But please be good to yourself and more soon.